Hello, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you very much for being on time. Much appreciated. It is actually the 29th of December for me, as well as for you, if you're listening to this live. So um, that means that you can ask questions during this webinar. So we've enabled a Q&A box. So if you go to your menu, you'll see that one of the options on the menu is the Q&A. If you have any questions at all during the webinar, feel free to put them in the Q&A section, in the Q&A option that you have in your menu. Please don't put them in the chat box, because if you put them in chat, then I won't necessarily see it, because it might disappear before I get to see it. So just so you know, I guess first of all, let's do a bit of housekeeping. So first of all, can you just please use the chat box or the Q&A box, your call, to let me know that you can hear me. So if you just put a little message in there saying yes, yep, something positive. Let's get this webinar show on the road. Awesome. Thank you, Clive. Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. Okay, let me just get rid of them. Thank you. Right. Okay. So congratulations. Well done for making it this far. Well done for not eating yourself to the point where you can't remember where you put your computer and you can't be bothered to go and find it. For those of you that are listening to this recorded, like I just said, it is the 29th of December for everybody that's live. So that means that in 2023, it's a Friday, although I didn't realize that until yesterday, that today was going to be Friday. You know, completely lost it. I heard a new word this year, a word which says it sort of describes that period between Christmas and New Year, called Twixmas. And I thought that's it needs its own word, doesn't it? Because it is a really, really, really unusual point of the year where you are constantly well, for me, this is autobiographical. I'm constantly eating. Come in, go out, do something, doesn't matter what, could, you know, be inspired to live a healthier life. Come in and just start grazing once again. And I've been doing that for about 4 days now. So thankfully, I put this webinar together before we broke up for work, which was on the 22nd of December. And it's all about making next year your best year. Obviously, we're sourced, we're in property. We know a huge amount about property. And you want to make next year better than this year, I imagine, which is the purpose of you being on this webinar. So how do you go about that? How can you make sure that next year is a phenomenal year for you in property? Now, if you're expecting this webinar to say to you, well, next year you should do HMOs and you should do this structure of HMOs and this is how you should buy them and this is how you should do them, this is not what I'm going to cover. I'm not going to sort of arbitrarily tell you what you should be doing, because nobody in a webinar should be able to do that. Because what you should focus on next year, what strategy you should focus on next year, is a much deeper conversation than just firing off a strategy at you and expecting you to go and blindly follow it. For you to choose your strategy that you're going to focus on next year, you should, if somebody's going to help you with that, then they should dive down much deeper into your personal situation, how much time you can put towards it, what your experience is, how much money you've got, what your skill set is as well, a much more personal question. Because you could make a huge amount of money, and I'll give you examples of some people that have done this. You could make a huge amount of money just selling investment property deals to people, right? Just being a salesperson. You could make easily into 6, potentially even 7 figures by doing that. But if you haven't got the skill set for it, you're wasting your time, because you'll never succeed at it. If your skill set is much more towards, you know, attention to detail and managing people and managing projects and doing, you know, doing much bigger, much longer development projects, if that's your skill set, then that's what you should focus on. And you can make just as much money, if not more money, doing it that way. It's slightly different structure to it. But the point is, you need a completely different skill set for that. So I'm not going to arbitrarily tell you what you should be focusing on, because I don't know you and I don't know you to the depths that would be necessary for you to make that decision. That's one of the reasons that we have a support team, and our support team goes into that amount of detail with every single franchisee that comes on board with us to create their plans. Now, once you have that strategy, once you have that focus, what do you then do? How do you then make sure that you achieve as much as you want to? Because it's really, really easy to sort of drift by. In fact, I was having this conversation yesterday with my wife about setting goals for 2024. It was our anniversary yesterday, and I took her out for a meal. And I asked her, what do you want to achieve in 2024? And she was telling me about some stuff, and I was asking her questions that are within this webinar to make sure that she's going to achieve her goals. Because I think it's fair to say, and even if she was listening to this webinar, which she's not, I think she'd agree with me that I am much more detail orientated. She isn't. She's sort of bigger picture. For her, her goals could be something like, oh, well, I just want to be happier. For me, there's no metrics around that, and so it's a really intangible thing to measure and then report on. So for me, that's not good enough. I need to break that down, and that's what we're going to go into in this webinar. We're going to go down. We're going to show you the process of breaking those big goals down to make sure that you hold yourself accountable for hitting the targets that you want to hit. Because it's really easy at this time of year to set yourself a big goal, which is, I don't know, I want to buy another 5 properties by the end of the year. But then what? Then what do you do? How do you then make sure that you do that? Because you could drift through 2024, and how many people have said, you know, we've just been through it. How many people got to December in 2023 and said, oh my God, I cannot believe it's already December. Hasn't this year flown? And really what you're saying to yourself is, you know, the time passes almost imperceptibly. You've got to put things in place to make sure that you're on track as time is passing you by, because you don't want to get to the end of another year and at the end of the other year think, well, I set a target for 5, but I've only done 1. You know, I'm not building my portfolio. I'm not creating wealth. I'm not building my own personal wealth anywhere near as quickly as I want to. So we're going to go through that. We're going to go through the process for that. We're going to go through how we show our franchisees to do it. And also we're going to show you, I'm going to share with you the document that we give to our franchisees to help them stay on track at the end of this webinar. So without further ado, let's get on with it. If you've been to our website, then this is our website. Oh, let me just go back there. If you've been to our website, this is our website. Currently, we're actually going through a little bit of a rebuild at the moment and a rebrand. But this is our website, and our website shows 4 different brands. We've got franchise on the right hand side, capital developments, and property, all within the property space. My job is the managing director of Sourced, so I look after all of these brands. The main brand that we have is on the right hand side, and that is franchise. And in franchise, what we do is people come on board with us, they pay us a fee to come on board as franchisees, and we take them through the process of building their own personal wealth through property. That's basically what we do. We don't have a set route that we go through. We don't only concentrate on HMOs or serviced accommodation or commercial conversions. We build their property CV, I guess. We build their property CV as they become more and more experienced. And we show them different ways that they can start off with potentially even no money at all. They can build that pot of money. They can then spend that pot of money on property. They can refurbish or put tenants in or whatever it might be to use that pot of money effectively, and then they can build their wealth, build the equity that they own in properties, move on to bigger deals, potentially move on to developments. So we show them how to build wealth out of property. Then we've got Source Capital, which is the blue one, and Source Capital funds their deals. Source Capital can provide the funding for them to buy a property deal. And that can be, you know, it's basically a bridging finance solution. So it's not as restrictive as a mortgage. It's a bridging company. It's a peer-to-peer based bridging company, if you understand what that means. It's FCA regulated, and it can potentially lend up to 100% of the build cost and 100% of the purchase price of a property. And we've done that multiple times in 2023, and we will continue to do that in 2024. We've got developments, which is our own developments. So you can see some of the stuff that we get up to as a property development company. And then we've got property on the left-hand side. And that's sort of the resources part of our website. So if you want to find webinars, if you want to find podcasts, if you want to find documents that we've produced and made available to people outside of our franchise network, then you can go there and you can have a look at that stuff. but we are sourced. We are very, 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 very into property. And this is one of our franchisees. Now, I'm showing you this guy. He's called Trevor. I'm showing you this guy because he joined us about a year ago. And a year ago, he came from South Africa, decided he wanted to get into property in the UK, didn't have any experience of property in the UK, came to our training courses, and then sat down with us. And I was actually one of those people that he sat down with. And we came up with a plan for him. And his plan consisted of building his cash flow, because he didn't have any money, but he wanted to get into property, and he was in it for the long haul. So we wrote a plan for him, and 12 months down the line, he's created a business that gives him £160,000 worth of profit per month. It's a lot of money, that, isn't it? £160,000 worth of profit per month. Sat down with him again a couple of months ago, and said to him, right, you've absolutely nailed the cash flow. Now we need to start buying properties, especially in the market where we are. 2023 has been a crazy, crazy time for the economy as a whole, and specifically for the property market. 12 months ago, we were in a place where inflation was still at something like 11.3%. We've come down now, we're at 3.9, 3.8% at the moment, which is terrific, but it's still twice as high as it should be at 2%. That's the Bank of England's target, 2%, because inflation has a huge knock-on effect on the property sector. Because in the property sector, people tend to borrow money. And if you're borrowing money, then the rate at which you're borrowing money is set by the interest rate. And the interest rate, one of the main contributing factors to where the interest rate is the rate of inflation. So inflation was very high, and therefore the interest rate also went very high in order to drive down the inflation, the rate of inflation, which it has done. And now, as inflation comes down, the interest rate will also follow it. Now, at the moment, the interest rate has plateaued, because the Bank of England don't want to reduce the interest rate too quickly to see that inflation then rises again. So 2023 has been the start of 2023 was a very difficult time for property developers that didn't have access to money. If you had cash, then 2023 has been a party, because you've been able to negotiate deals and properly, truly below market value deals in a way that you haven't been able to for a long time. Now, 2024, what's going to happen is, as I said, inflation's come down to 3.8, 3.9%. The interest rate will follow. And as the interest rate goes down, more property developers will come back to the market. So competition will increase. Therefore, the quicker you can buy property, if you've got money in your pocket, the more likely you are to get a phenomenal deal. That's the truth of the current market. The longer we go through 2024, the lower the interest rate comes down, the more people that are going to be able to buy property, and therefore there's going to be more competition. Now, you might be listening to this thinking, well, hold on a minute, Chris. This is not what the media tells us. The media says that it's been an absolutely terrible time in 2023 for people that have got property. That's because when the media report on property, they're talking about homeowners. They're not talking about investors, because the vast majority of people that they're talking to will be homeowners. Therefore, they're hitting their main audience. In 2023, it's been a phenomenal year for people involved in investing in property. 2024 will gradually get worse and worse for people that are investing in property as more people come back to the market, and therefore competition increases. That's the truth of the situation that we're in at the moment. So when I sat down with Trevor a couple of months ago and said to him, you need to buy properties now. You've got good cash flow. You've got a decent amount of money coming in. You need to start buying properties, because for exactly the same reasons, because you'll be able to negotiate much bigger discounts now than you will be able to in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months time. That's the truth of the situation. So Trevor came to us, zero money in his pocket. He's created a business because he's followed what we've told him to do. He's followed what we've sat down and understood what his skill set is, what his personal situation, how much time he can put into it, how much money he's got in his pocket. We understood all of that, created a plan. He's gone out and executed that plan really well. This is Nigel. Nigel's got a different plan, or Nigel had a different plan. This is the property that Nigel bought. Nigel focuses on refurbing HMOs, or buying properties and then turning them into HMOs, letting them out to the NHS and on a FRI lease, if you know what that is, and then basically adding properties to his portfolio that take him absolutely zero time whatsoever to manage. Now, this was the plan that we sat down and we created with Nigel when Nigel first joined us, and this is exactly what he's executed. This particular property, the purchase price of 200,000 and the refurbishment cost of 220,000, he borrowed all of that money from source capital, from us, to do that project, which meant that when he looked at that deal, instead of working out what 25% of the purchase price was so that he could work out how much deposit he would need in his pocket, he didn't need to have a deposit. Now, he did have the upfront costs to pay for purchasing the property, but he didn't have to have the deposit for the actual purchase of the property in his pocket. This is, I think off the top of my head, should have looked at this before I came on the webinar. I think off the top of my head, this is Nigel's third deal with us. And he's got a pipeline of about £9 million worth of additional properties. Exactly the same kind of thing. He's just executing his plan perfectly. £9 million worth of other properties that he wants to add to his portfolio. And for Nigel, this is all about legacy and all about creating something that he can hand down to his kids. So I've shown you so far, just to give you context of what we're talking about, I've shown you somebody that joined us with the zero money in their pocket. I've showed you somebody that joined us with a little bit of money in their pocket and they went straight out to buying properties. And now I'm going to show you somebody who has done some building work previously, didn't want to work for other people, wanted to do it for himself, had a little bit of money in his pocket, and so he went straight to developments. This is Jaimie. Now, this deal on the right-hand side that you can see here, this is a CGI from his first project that he did with us. He came on board, he wanted to do projects, he bought a bungalow, turned it into these two houses that you can see in the image there. So he bought one house, turned it into two. He then did a development of 7 properties, and now he's building an estate of 22 properties. So he's gradually ramped up the developments that he's doing. But again, to be completely transparent, he had some money in his pocket to start off with in order to do that first deal. He didn't need to look at his cash flow. So where do you start? How do you do this? How do you look at 2024 and think, well, am I in a similar position to Trevor, who needs to work on their cash flow? Am I in a similar position to Nigel, where I don't have a huge amount of experience, but I do have some money in my pocket? And can I work on fairly straightforward, fairly vanilla sort of refurbishment projects? Or are you in the same position as Jaimie, where you've got experience and you've got money in your pocket? And what you need help with is ramping that up, scaling your business to put as much money in your pocket in as short a space of time as you possibly can. Now, like I said to you at the very beginning, that's a conversation between you and, in our case, if you joined us as a source franchisee with your support person, you'd sit down, you'd have that conversation, you'd work out a plan for what you're going to focus on. But then what do you do? Well, at that point, you should create, or you should come up with your 12-month goal. And that is defining what you want. Your 12-month goal, where do you want to be in 12 months' time? And, you know, that's completely down to you. The way that you do that, though, is that you think, right, in 12 months' time, I would like to have this. The way that you shouldn't do that is if you think, well, in 12 months' time, let's have a think about that. Well, in 1 month, I can do this. In 2 months, therefore, I can do this. And then multiply that by 12 to work out where you can be in 12 months' time. Because that is only accelerating your growth as quickly as you currently understand how to. What I want you to do is I want you to think, well, in 12 months' time, I'm going to create a goal so big, so sort of out of reach, that I don't currently understand how I'm going to get to it. because what that will encourage you to do is that will encourage you to grow. It'll encourage the subconscious side of your brain to get working on creating a plan for how you're going to hit that big goal. So first stage, define what you want. Second part of that is work out how. Now, you might not know how you're going to do that right now, but that's fine. What you can do, though, is you can break that down into sections to make it much more palatable on understanding how you're going to achieve that goal. So let's look at what these guys did. Trevor, cash flow, his long-term goal was to work on cash flow for 1 year, which is exactly what he's done. He would then build his experience on the following 2 years. And then after those 3 years combined, he would start doing developments. Now, Nigel, like I said to you before, he didn't need to work on cash flow. So he went straight into building his experience. So he's got 2 years worth of experience that he's going to build. And then after that, he's going to go into bigger projects. So I said that he had £9 million worth of projects in the pipeline. That involves some bigger development projects. And then Jaimie didn't need cash flow. He didn't need experience. So he went straight into developments. Now, for some of you, this is going to really resonate with some of you that are listening to this webinar, because the most important thing when you're when you're creating a plan for how you're going to maximize your time, let's say in 2024, is that you create a plan that's achievable and you understand that that plan's achievable. What I really don't like seeing is people that come into property and they have no experience, they have no money, and they say, I'm going to build 5 estates of houses in 12 months' time. Well, realistically, you're not going to do that because you don't have the money and you don't have any experience whatsoever. So you're going to find it very, very difficult to borrow any money if you don't have the experience. It's really important that when you're setting your big goal, you're realistic about what you need to achieve, not just what you want to achieve. So Trevor needed to achieve cash flow, so he focused on cash flow. Nigel needed to achieve experience, so he focused on experience. Jaimie didn't need either of those things, so he went straight into developments. One of the things that you need to take into consideration, especially if you're just coming into property, is the amount of time that it takes you to get paid, because you're a property investor now. Now, if you're buying stuff, if you're buying properties and you're refurbishing them and you're then selling it on at the other end, you need to realize, not a lot of people do when they first come into property, that now that you're investing in property and you're taking all of the risk and you're borrowing all of the money with a personal guarantee in your name, that doesn't mean that you get paid any quicker. You are still the last person in the whole development to get paid. So the builders, the bricklayers, the window fitters, the electricians, the gas engineers, they all get paid before you do. We've got some developments now where, let's say we've got 10 houses. We as the main developer, as the owner of the entire site, we're not going to get paid when the first house sells out of those 10. We're going to get paid when the 9th and 10th houses sell, because all of the money that we earn from the selling numbers 1 through 8 are paying off the costs of the loans and people that were involved. We get paid last. So when you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I really want to get into property. Look, here's a deal. It makes £500,000 and I can do this, even though you've got no experience. You've got a way of making it happen, and you do that, but you need to be paid all the way through that development, then you're going to struggle. Because on big developments, such as commercial conversions, such as new build houses, they can take 12, 18, 24 months before you get paid. So you need to consider how you're going to manage all the way through that process, especially if the projects are so big that you're working on them full time. Well, how else are you going to make money during that period? Can you survive? Can you look after your family's finances all the way through that period? So you need to really consider what you focus on first. And I would do it in the order that I've just shown you through Trevor, Nigel, and Jaimie. First of all, cash flow. Is your cash flow sorted out and sustainable? Secondly, build an experience. But that doesn't mean not earning money, but you're gradually making the projects that you're doing bigger and more complicated over a period of time to give you experience. Because if you don't have that experience, lenders are not going to lend to you. And then finally getting into development. Now, this is a quite a rudimentary sort of infographic that shows the amount of time that it takes. On the left-hand side, I think you can see my cursor. On the left-hand side, you've got little grey boxes. Now, that's from selling deals. On the left here, you've got the months. So you find a deal in month 0, takes you 2 months to sell it. And at the top of that, where the coin is, you make some money. So you make 5-6 grand from selling that deal. In month 1, you find something. In month 2, you find something. And it takes you 2 months to sell all of those deals. So you're constantly turning over about £5,000 or £6,000 if your effort and achievement is consistent at finding and selling deals. And then once you've done that, you move on to bigger deals. So you move on to something that you're either going to buy or you're going to have some kind of joint ownership in, and you're going to refurbish that property. You're going to sell it on, or you're going to refurbish it and then refinance it and then rent it out. Now, when you refinance it, you could make even more money. So you could really start building your pot of money. And you could do numerous deals like this per year. In here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally get onto the big deal. So if you find this big deal at month 0, it's going to take you at least 12 months to convert this. And you're going to make a big pot of money, but you don't make any money all the way through until you get to that end part. Now, even on something like this, you can make a really serious and significant amount of money by doing something as simple as that, the thing that I've just shown you. So let's look at, you trade 11 deals. You make £5,000 per deal. Well, that's 55 grand that you've just turned over. And the good thing about trading is there are very few costs involved in trading. So that £55,000 is pretty much all profit. If you want to do just 3 flips in a year, average income per flip, 75 grand. Well, that's £150,000. Those two combined, you're earning over £200,000 per year by trading 11 deals on and flipping 3 properties. It's a significant amount of money. And then if you add 1 conversion to that, then £600,000 in 12 months, £600,000 gets you quite close to £1 million worth of turnover, or £1 million worth of profit, actually, because we've made these the profit numbers. That's really significant. However, you have to focus on the cash flow stuff first before you start moving up. If you want to make sure that 2024 is successful for you in property, I would highly recommend that when you put in this together, you pay attention to cash flow, then experience, and then getting onto the bigger developments. Because if you don't, then you could end up with 0 at the end of the 12 months. And we don't want that to happen. 0 just because you've gone straight for the conversion. You've gone straight for that big deal instead of focusing on the things that you should have focused on. And I've seen that happen in property. You need to pay attention to it, because I would much rather that you were in this position here with £805,000 in your name at the end of the 12 months than that one. Somebody's asked a question, so I'm just going to have a quick look at it. Okay, so let me just read this out for you. If one is unable to release equity from high street lenders, how can you assist in release equity from existing buy-to-lets and residential to use in the purchase of a buy-to-let? So if you're unable to release equity by going to high street lenders, well, the first thing that I would do is, yeah, you've got high street lenders that you're able to contact, but I would also go to a broker that you know is good. And if you can't release equity from that broker because of the products that are on the market right now, how else can you do it? Well, you could sell part of the equity that you own in the house. So you could sell that equity on to somebody else. So let's say that you personally own outright 30%. You could sell 15. You could sell half of your equity, so 15% of the overall house, and you could raise money that way to keep on buying stuff. But obviously, the downside of that is that you've just sold you've just sold part of the unit that you already own. The other thing that you can look at is something like second charges, or money from investors if you want to use investors. But you know, the main part of that, the main people that will help you monetize your equity are high street lenders. Where do you trade properties? I say, okay, so that's a good question. So let me just. Hmm, let me just get back to this the webinar. I seem to have paused the screen share, so let me have a look at making that right. Sorry, guys, just bear with me for a second. I'll just start it again. There we go. Okay, so let me go back to this one. So the second question that I was asked in there was, where do you trade properties? So for our franchisees, we've created an app, the Sourced Property Investment app. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of investors that are on this app. And our franchisees are able to put their properties on the app in front of investors. Investors get notifications when new properties are added, and there's usually between 5 and 10 properties added per day. And the investors contact the franchisees directly to buy those properties. So that's a solution that we've created at Sourced for our network of franchisees. If you're not part of the franchise network, then I would say that the easiest way for you to put your deals in front of investors would be to use social media and build up your presence on social media. So many people have made a great success out of building a reputation on social media and selling deals on social media I'll give you a couple actually. Sam Spencer, Flora Russo, phenomenal businesses that they've created just by using social media. The other way that you can do it, if you're not a fan of social media, is build up your reputation locally. So start hosting property events, go to other people's property events, do as much as you can, network with as many people as you possibly can within property. Again, for our franchisees, we help them run networking events in their local areas because it's such a powerful tool at getting in front of investors and building relationships with investors. So how do you create this wealth? Let's have a look at creating that 12-month goal. So what do you want? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself when you're thinking about what your 12-month goal should be. What do you want life to look like in 12 months' time? What have you already got to contribute towards this? So potentially financially, or potentially a portfolio that you already have. What can be added to the pot every 12 months? Or what can you contribute? You know, if you've got a surplus in your salary, or if you've got other investments that give you money, what else can you put into that pot to help you create that or help you hit that goal in 12 months' time? So that goal could be about finances. That goal could be, well, I want to be turning over £100,000 a year, £200,000 a year, £300,000 a year, whatever it is. What have you already got to contribute towards this? What can be added to the pot every 12 months? How is property going to help you? It's a good question, right? Because property might not be the answer. You might be fixated on property, but actually it might not be the right tool, the right vehicle to help you hit that goal that you want to hit. So how is property going to help? Are you going to be renting stuff out? Are you going to be flipping stuff? How does property help you hit that goal? Then what is your property experience? And just be absolutely honest. You're only talking to yourself here. You're the one that's asking these questions that you're asking. So what is your property experience and how can property help you get that? What are you trying to achieve longer term? So we're talking about 12 months now, but after 12 months, you know, what are you trying to achieve in 5 years, in 10 years, and 15 years? Are you trying to create a legacy that you're going to hand over to your family? Are you trying to simply supplement your income so you can walk away from your day job? All really good, really good reasons. But again, you need to be honest with yourself to make sure that you end up at the right strategy that fits you and your situation perfectly. What transferable skills can you bring to this? For instance, are you good at sales? If you're not good at sales, have you done project management before? And can you bring project management to the table? Again, really great skills. But again, be honest, so that when you're sitting down, when you're putting this all together, you can really see whether you're trying to cram a square peg into a round hole, or if you've got a round peg that fits beautifully. Because those round pegs that fit beautifully, basically, you're creating fewer barriers to you achieving your long-term goal. And if there are fewer barriers, you're more likely to hit it. So all of our 4 brands that I went through before, what we do is we create this environment, we create this culture within Source to help our franchisees do this. So we give them training, we give them support, we give them property leads, and we give them access to funding. And we help them manage that whole process with our bespoke software. Because again, like I just said, the fewer barriers you've got in your way, the more likely you are to hit your long-term goals. So that's what we do within franchise. We try and make it as accessible as we possibly can for our network of franchisees to hit their goals. Then on the property side, we've got the app, we've got auctions to allow our franchisees to sell those deals. But we put a huge amount of marketing effort into driving investors towards those deals to then buy them from our franchisees. And we do that by podcasts, by webinars like this, by free downloads, by loads of different things. So we drive the investors. We try and take that effort and that difficulty away from our franchisees because we try and do it for them. Within Sourced Capital, we raise a huge amount of money to fund our franchisees' deals. And then our development shows that, these are not developments that we did 10 or 15 years ago. We've still got developments going on around the country. We know what we're talking about when it comes to property because we do property. Right now, out there, multiple deals, lots of different strategies, lots of different structures, and all of that we do, we make transparent to our franchisees so they know that they're kept informed about anything that's happening. So priority, cash flow first. Second, cash flow sorted. Third, developments. Once you've set your 12-month goal, what do you then do? Well, it's a fairly simple process from that point on. Let's say that your 12-month goal is to buy 10 properties, right? Buy 10 properties, rent those 10 properties out. So set your 12-month goal. Now break it down to 6 months. So if I've got a 12-month goal to buy 10 properties, where do I need to be in 6 months' time? Now, you might think, well, if in 12 months that I want to have bought 10 properties, in 6 months I need to have bought 5. But it doesn't work like that. Because the more you do something, the better you get at it, the more efficient you are at it, and your growth is exponential. So it's only in a curve shape, an upward curve, rather than a straight line. So if you want to have bought 10 by 12 months, in 6 months, you probably need to have bought 4. And then in the second half of the year, because you're so much better at it now than when you started, you'll need to buy 6. But you'll be able to do that because, like I said, you're better at it now. Now, that would be the point where most people stop. Most people just leave it at that point and say, well, there you go, 6 months, need to have bought 4 properties, so let's go and have a look. And they'll go and have a look on Rightmove, and then they might have a look tomorrow on Rightmove, and they'll sort of forget about it for a couple of weeks. And then they'll be reminded, oh, I've got this goal. I better go back and have a look on Rightmove again. But it's all very wishy-washy. There's no detail in their plan, because if they have detail and they can execute on the detail, then they'll hit their goal. They're much more likely to hit their goals and then achieve their big 12-month goal, right? So the purpose of doing it this way is to keep you focused on the day-to-day activity of what you're doing, because if you execute on that day-to-day activity, you'll get to where you want to be in 12 months' time without even realizing it. You might have heard the saying or the mantra, you've got to fall in love with the process. And that is absolutely true. And it's true across the board. It's not just in property, but setting any goals, whether it be fitness or in relationships or in giving to charity or whatever it is, it's always the same way of doing it. You fall in love with the process. So you work out what your process is, You make sure you execute that, and then that big goal will just happen. It's exactly the same as the look after the pennies and the pounds look after themselves. It's exactly the same mentality. You look after the detail, you execute on the detail, and you'll get to where you need to be. And you know what? That 12-month goal, you might not hit it in 12 months. You might hit it in 10, or you might hit it in 14. But if you just stay consistent and committed to the process, then you'll get there. So now that we've broken it down into 6 months, we need to break it down into 3 months. And again, it might be that in 3 months' time, you need to have bought 1 property. In 3 months' time, you buy 1 property. In the following 3 months, you'll buy 3 properties, and that gets you to the 4 to hit your six-month goal. And then in a 12-month goal, you need to buy, well, between 6 and 12 months, you need to buy 6 more properties. But you're now so competent, so good, that you'll make that work. So break it down to 3 months. Where do you need to be in 3 months? Well, in 3 months' time, I need to buy 1 property. And it's so much more palatable now, isn't it? Sounds so much easier rather than just say in 12 months' time, you need to buy 10 properties. Well, okay, but how do I do that? Well, you start to break it down. But we go even further. We now break it down into 1 month. So in 1 month, where do I need to be? Well, in 1 month, in the first 3 months, you can't buy a property every month, can you? Because that'll mean you've bought 3 properties, but you only need to buy one property in the first 3 months. So in 1 month, where do you need to be? Well, in 1 month, you need to have found the property, and you need to be along the conveyancing structure, the conveyancing route to buy that property. And now you work out what your weekly activity is. So you need to work out how many estate agents you're going to talk to. You need to work out how many properties you're going to go and view. You need to work out how many properties you're going to put an offer in on. And these are all very, very, very good markers, good accountability markers for you to put in place for your weekly activity. And you need to be absolutely committed to what that is. Let's say it's to put offers in on 4 properties. And 1 week you go and view 4 properties and you put an offer in on all of them because they all work. The finances work on all 4 properties. But next week you go and see 20 properties and only 2 of them work. Well, by the end of the week, guess what? There's no pity party here. This isn't, oh, well, you tried so hard. You went to see 20 properties. You did really well. It's not about that. You've got a commitment to put offers in on 4 properties. So even though you've already seen 20, you need to get out there and you need to go and view more properties and more properties that work. You've got to hit the results. That's what you're creating here. You're creating a culture of hitting the results rather than, oh, well, I made myself busy, but I didn't actually achieve anything. Because who cares about that? Literally nobody. It doesn't put money in your pocket. It doesn't make you or your children or your family richer. So it's all about the results. So you work out your weekly activity, you break it down, and now you know what you've got to achieve this week. This week, you've got to do X, Y, and Z to hit your long-term goal. And just like looking at Trevor, looking at Nigel, looking at Jaimie, they all had very, very different weekly activity goals because they have very, very different 12-month goals, different skill sets, different focuses. And that's why you start with that big picture and then you chunk it down and you get into the detail. So you work out your weekly activity and now you've got to hit that weekly activity. That is your responsibility. That is the difference between you building your wealth, staying where you are. It's that simple. So now from that weekly activity, you can make a checklist. And there's loads of different programs that you can use to keep that checklist. We've created software that our franchisees can use to make sure that they stick to that weekly activity, that accountability stuff that they need to do. And that's how it works. That's how you make 2024 a success for you. It's not me coming on here saying, oh, the property market's going to do this, therefore you should focus on serviced accommodation or you should focus on HMO. It doesn't work like that. Because the market's going to change. There's more than one opportunity out there. So if I said serviced accommodation was the opportunity for next year, I'd be missing out on loads of different opportunities that are out there. So it's not about that. It's about you and the way that you operate. So this is what you need to do in order to make 2024 the best year yet. Now we're going to send you this document. It's the goal setting, planning, and accountability document. This is what we give to all of our franchisees when they start with us. Let me just go back to it. And you can use that document to help set out the way that you're going to make 2024 work for you. Now, in that document, it does talk about property, obviously, because that's what we do. But it also talks about lots of different other things as well in there. So it talks about, relationships, and it talks, or it allows you to set goals for relationships for lots of different other categories. Because most people, when they're going through this goal setting process, they understand that it works, and it works really well. So they want to do it across everything in their life rather than just property. Because why find out that this works and it works really well and then only use it for property? You'd want to use it for everything else as well. So this is Shahed. I want to take you back to somebody else that's creating a huge amount of cash flow. Again, Shahed, fantastic salesperson. Sold 22 service accommodation deals within 48 hours of passing them to HQ and putting them on our app. 22 deals. Average price per deal, £5,000. Consistently sells between 15 and 20 deals per month. Now, that's a huge amount of cash flow that he's creating there. And like I said to you before, selling deals means that you don't really have any overheads in selling deals. So he creates a huge amount of turnover, most of which is profit. And that's his focus. Now, moving Shahed onto development wouldn't work because he doesn't have that kind of mentality, that character. He wouldn't do great at development, whereas he does phenomenally well at deal sourcing and trading. Phil, like Nigel, let me go back, went too quickly. Phil, like Nigel, is looking to build his experience and get into bigger deals. He had a bit of money in his pocket, started buying properties, flipping them up, refurbishing them, flipping them, making 40, 50, 60 grand. And he'll do multiple of these per year. Again, we facilitated that happening. He's borrowed money from Source Capital to do that. He's bought in previous deals, he's borrowed 100% of the build cost, 100% of the purchase price of the properties. We talked about Nigel. I talked to you all the way through Nigel's plan and his £9 million pipeline. This is Chris. He created an office building. He got an office building. He created it into 14 apartments. This was his first ever deal. Now, in this, because it was his first ever deal, and I want to be completely transparent with you, we joint ventured with him on this because he didn't have the experience, and therefore he wouldn't have been able to borrow money from the lender. But he came on board with us. He borrowed money from Source Capital, or we collectively borrowed money from Source Capital, and we made this deal work. Profit of just over £1 million. And we split that because we were joint venture partners. And then this is Mark. Mark's on to his fourth development in just under or just over. I can't remember exactly when Mark joined, but around 2.5 years. Seven-figure profit, 4 developments of various sizes. Mark had the experience. He had some money. He was able to borrow from Source Capital to scale his business faster than he could through anybody else. What happens when franchisees come on board with us? Well, we send them leads, or they find a property deal. They assess it. So we give them the training to show them how to assess the deal, to work out whether it works. We give them the software. We give them deal calculators to show them whether the deal works or not. And then they have 4 choices. The first one is to bin it because it might not work. And this is the most underrated thing that people can do within property, because a property deal can cost you a fortune, especially if it doesn't work. It can cost you everything that you currently have. So having the knowledge to know whether to move forward with a property deal or whether to bin it off is a very, very valuable thing. So the first thing that they can do is they can bin it. Then the next thing that they could do is they could go for funding. If the deal works, they could go for funding. If they want to sell the deal because they don't want to do it themselves, but they still want to make cash flow from it, they could put it onto the app, in which case they'll be put in touch with investors, or they can put it into an auction whereby the auction company will talk to the investors and the franchisee doesn't have to. They've obviously got a huge amount of support. Every single deal that a franchisee finds goes through their support person to double check the numbers when they first come on board with us. So it can go to Source Capital for the funding, it can go to the auction, or it can go out to the app. And that's our process. That's how we help people monetize property. Just looking at the Q&A. I've got Nigel on the webinar at the moment. Hello, Nigel. How are you? You'll get the, he's saying that he's only going to be able to stay for the next 5 minutes. So Nigel, you'll get a recording anyway. But good to see you here. Thanks for coming on board, Nigel. Let me just get rid of the questions. So the investment required, if you want to do this on your own, obviously you can, right? First of all, as you can hear, when you're putting this 12-month goal setting process together, you need to make sure that you're talking to somebody about it. You need to have someone, and they can be a business partner that you already have. They can be a relative. They can be, you know, a support person if you come on board as part of Sourced. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that they're holding you accountable to everything that you're saying. They're questioning you. They're making sure that you have in place what you need in order to move forward and make 2024 a success. Now, if you want to do this on your own, there's a bunch of stuff that you need to take into consideration, like startup training, salary, investment capital, because you don't know how to structure deals to get to reduce the amount of money that you need to put into it. So you'll need some investment capital, because you'll have to, you know, basically it costs. If you don't learn, it's going to cost you more money. So let's say that you're going to put 50 grand in your pocket in order to do that. So you need to have saved 50 grand in order to start this business. And then you can, you know, on a monthly basis, you need to still provide yourself with things like property leads and investor leads, which roughly cost about 50 quid each, computer systems, which are going to come at a regular fee. You'll need to purchase a mentor. You need to pay for funding application. I think, is it Crowd Property that charge a couple of grand? No, 1,250, something like that, just to apply to borrow money from them. As a franchisee with Source Capital, there is no cost. You'll need to pay for monthly training events, because the property market changes all the time. So to say that I've been on one property course won't be enough. You need to constantly update your training. For us, we make training available to our franchisees all the time, and they can come onto the courses as many times as they want to. And like I said, we are involved in property, so we're constantly updating our training content as well. You'll need to do networking, and you'll need documents and contracts and lots of different legal documents that will help facilitate you moving forward, you structuring deals, you securing deals. And that can cost about £5,100 per month. Like I just said, if you want training, if you want support, you go to a trainer. You can get unlimited support from a mentor. A trainer or a training company, about 25 grand a year. £600 per month for a mentor. Leads come from a lead generation company, 50 quid each. An agent can help you sell your property. They're going to cost you 1%. A lender might only give you a low loan to value, which means you need to have more money in your pocket. A JV partner can give you 100% funding, and they can give you an agreement in principle, which is very, very useful, but they'll ask for a high percentage of the equity. We at Source, we give you all of these things. Now, the price for being a Source franchisee is £14,250, and that's for a 5-year deal. That's not just for 1 year, that's for 5 years. And then it's £245 plus VAT per month. That's the price on the 1st of January. What's that? 3 days away? However, because you've been on this webinar, I'll give you the 2023 price of £12,999 plus VAT until the 31st of January. So I'll basically give you £1,251 off until the 1st of January. But you need to make sure that if you contact us, you let us know that you've been on this webinar. Otherwise, you'll be charged £14,250. Just got another question, so let me just go on there. Well done, Nigel. I hope you're still on. I just got a message from Nigel in the Q&A box, so let me just read it out to you. Just to advise that I am up to 11 million in 2024 and now mentoring a new business in Taunton, starting up a new lettings operation with a new exclusive contract with Somerset NHS. It's a very lucrative contract, and I have worked hard to get it great for 2024. Congratulations, Nigel. I'll message you afterwards, actually, and just let you know, just in case you're not on the webinar still. But that is a phenomenal way to walk into 2024. Well done, and you absolutely deserve it for the amount of hard work and effort that you put into your business, Nigel. Well done. So the next steps for you, if you want to take advantage of that lower price while you can, is you can scan that QR code on the right hand side, and you can book in a meeting with Sam. We'll be back in the office on the 2nd of January, like most businesses, and Sam will basically get to know a bit more about you, work out whether you're right for us as well as us being right for you, because we have a network of over 200 franchisees now, but we only work with people who we know can move forward and can be successful. So it might be the case that you've heard that other people have applied to become members of Sourced and they haven't been successful. Well, that's because we only work with people that are very, very serious about building their wealth and making their situation at the end of 2024 better than it is at the end of 2023. So if you're interested in that, by all means, scan on that QR code, get in touch with us and arrange that meeting with Sam. Otherwise, if Sourced isn't for you, and I fully respect that, it's not for everybody, then I hope that you found the goal setting structure that we use useful. I hope that you can put that into practice in 2024, and you will receive an email from us in the next few days. It might be on the 2nd of January. I'm not sure when it's been set up for, to be honest. But you'll receive an email from us with that document that helps you structure the way that you set goals. So thank you very much for joining me. I'll let you get back to your turkey because I'm sure you've got some left. We make Boxing Day pie as a tradition in our house. So all the leftovers from Christmas Day, we put into a pie. We then cook the pie, and then that pie stays in the fridge. And I'd say that we've probably got about 6 weeks worth of pie left at the moment. There's a huge amount of pie in our fridge. So that's not going to eat itself. So I'll leave you at this point, and I'll get back to my grazing and basically building my weight. Got another message from Nigel. This was not planned. Nigel said, "Good luck, everyone. Thanks very much, and good luck, everyone," which is terrific. Thanks very much, Nigel. Lee Hawker. Thank you very much, Lee, for sending me a message. Just joined Sourced, excited to get started. Would you class rent-to-rent service accommodation as a quick cash flow strategy along with deal sourcing? And is this a strategy you could begin with as well? Lee, that is a terrific question. And this almost seems set up, really, to be honest. There's something going on with service accommodation at the moment that you need to be aware of. Okay, service accommodation is undergoing a big legislation change. It all started in Edinburgh with the addition of licensing and the addition of a planning stage added to whether you could run service accommodation. I'd strongly advise that you talk to your support personally before you make any commitments to anything. If you are going to sign up, basically it comes down to this: if you are going to sign up to any kind of rent-to-rent deal where service accommodation is the exit for that deal, the way that you monetize that deal, you need to have a good plan B. Because you sign up to a 5-year rent-to-rent deal, right? And let's say that after 12 months' time, the legislation changes that says that you can't actually use that property for rent-to-rent anymore. And that's basically what they've done in Edinburgh. They've changed the rules to say that you can't use that property for rent-to-rent anymore. Then what are you going to do? You've still got a 5-year deal. So you default on the deal, you tarnish your own reputation, you tarnish your credit history. If you carry on with that deal, you could be losing money every month. So if you are going to use service accommodation as an exit, you need to make sure you've got a strong plan B in case service accommodation is taken away from you as an opportunity, so that you can fall back on using it as a HMO or using it as a normal buy-to-let, but you're still making money. You might not be making as much money, I accept that, but you're still making money. So you need to be aware of that when you're putting your plan together. You're welcome, Lee, and thank you very much for coming on the webinar. Izu, thank you. You are more than welcome. If you've got any other questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, I'm going to get back to my pie. All right, then. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. And if you are still on holiday, enjoy the rest of your break, and good luck in 2024. I hope it brings you everything that you're hoping it will. Cheers. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.